Good afternoon and welcome to Tuesday Talks at the White House. November 11th is Veterans Day, a day where the country comes together to celebrate the men and women that have served in the United States Armed Forces. And today, we're so thrilled to have Tammy Duckworth with us. Tammy is the Veteran Affairs Assistant Secretary for Public and Intergovernmental Affairs. I'm going to turn it over to Tammy to give a brief introduction, but the way that this is working is you've been sending us your questions on Facebook for the past couple of days. There's a live chat that's happening right now. If you go to whitehouse.gov/live, you can click the link to jump into the chat where I'll be taking your questions live for Tammy. To introduce myself, I'm Corey Schulman in the Department of New Media, and I'm going to turn it over to Tammy for a brief introduction before we jump into your questions.
Great, thanks, Corey. Well, it's a real pleasure to be here. Veterans Day is the 11th of November. It's actually observed on 11/11/11, so the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. It comes from the armistice that ended World War I. It's actually a day for us to celebrate those who have served. Sometimes people get Veterans Day confused with Memorial Day. Memorial Day is a day that we celebrate and honor our fallen heroes. But Veterans Day is a day to go out and find those veterans that you know and say thank you for your service, and to observe them and just observe the great sacrifices that they've made for us.
Great, thank you. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into your questions. We have one that came in from Dwight Robinson, and Dwight asks, what can be done to simplify the processing of disability claims and to broaden qualifications for claims? For example, PTSD, unusual circumstance, PTSD claim pending.
Absolutely. Well, that's a really good question because it's something that we're working on actively at VA right now. One of the big efforts that President Obama put into place was in May of 2009, and he charged both DoD and VA with creating a seamless transition system, the virtual lifetime electronic records, where when you leave the military and you come to VA, your records will transfer with you so that we don't have to go back and try to recover old records. And that's going to cut down on the processing time tremendously. Another thing that you can do as a veteran yourself is within 5 years of a deployment, come to VA and get into our system. You can come at any time, you can get in, come for a physical, you hurt your knee, you twisted your ankle while on deployment, whatever it is, come and get into the system as soon as you get out, because that really helps. The final thing that you can do is if you can come to us, say you're retiring or actually separating from the military, come within that first year. So many of the illnesses and ailments are considered to be presumptive. That means we assume that it's from your military service if you come to us within the first 12 months of being discharged. If you wait beyond that, now you get into the process of having to prove that it was caused by your military service and not by something else. So timing is really important.
Okay. The next question comes from Dave Equality Casker. Dave writes, I'm interested in hearing a progress report on the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center program and other interdepartmental work between the Departments of Defense and Veterans Affairs.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're working very hard on the brain injury issue. And when you talk about brain injury, you also have to talk about post-traumatic stress, because the symptoms of both can be very similar and sometimes they mask each other. A large percentage of our men and women coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan have a mild or minor form of brain injury, and many of them may also have some form of post-traumatic stress. And so if you don't get the proper diagnosis, sometimes you can give medication for one that actually is counterindicative for the other. And we're working very closely with the Army, with all of DoD actually, on the brain injury process. We're investing a lot of money into research for brain injury, but we're also investing a lot into our post-traumatic stress as well. For example, 100% of our veterans who come through VA for care will be screened for both post-traumatic stress and a brain injury when you come in through your initial screening.
Okay, thank you. For those of you that are just joining us, you can go to whitehouse.gov/live. There's a link where you can jump into the Facebook chat that's happening right now. We're getting a lot of questions for Tammy live. I'm going to turn it over to a question that comes from Jesse Mag. Jesse says, I'm a primary care physician at a rural VA. How are we going to ensure our vets in rural areas get equivalent treatment to those near large cities?
Well, the way that VA does that is through the program that's called Fee Basis. And what Fee Basis does is that it allows our veterans who are too far away from a VA medical center to go to their local physician of choice, and we will actually pay that physician to take care of our veterans. For example, I get my artificial legs made at a private practitioner, because number one, when I first came into VA, they did not have services adequate enough to support my needs. So I asked for it and was allowed to do that. If you live in a very remote area, you can also, if you want to come to a VA center, you can actually apply for and get refunded for your travel costs as well to come to VA.
Okay, thank you. We've had a couple of questions come in on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Alvin Charles asks, what's VA's sort of stance on the policy? And Alan Fan had a similar question. Can you speak a little bit to your take on Don't Ask, Don't Tell and where VA stands in that?
Sure. So there's a little bit of confusion because Don't Ask, Don't Tell is a DoD policy. It's not a VA policy. So we have no position on Don't Ask, Don't Tell as far as military service. We don't deal with that. I will tell you that VA does not discriminate when we treat our veterans. We will take care of all qualified veterans, all those who qualify for VA care, regardless of their orientation.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes from Julia Sink. She asks, why are there homeless veterans and what is being done about it?
Well, it's a really big problem. There's 107,000 homeless veterans on the streets of this nation any night of the week. That number is down. 18 months ago when the president first announced and Secretary Shinseki came up with the 5-year plan to end homelessness, there were 131,000 homeless veterans on the streets. We're down to 107,000. We'd like that number to be 0 within 5 years. And the goal in the homelessness program is to stop that downward spiral. In fact, what happens is when somebody is homeless, a lot of things have already failed. Maybe they didn't get the medical care that they needed for their post-traumatic stress. They could have begun to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol that leads to them losing a job. Maybe they needed help keeping that job or finding a job. They may have needed to be able to get training to get into schools. So there's a lot of things that have gone wrong when the veteran finally ends up homeless. What we're trying to do in VA, in addition to increasing the number of facilities where a veteran can move into transitional and then permanent housing, is to stop that downward spiral. Stop that process where you're turning for help and you're not getting it, and one thing just leads to another. We're working as hard as we can. We're down to 107,000. We're hoping that that number will be down even more in a few months when we do another count. But the goal is 0 in 5, because any time a veteran sleeps on the same streets that he or she defended, we are all dishonored.
Are there things that people can do, ordinary people across the country, that can contribute to sort of the mission of Veterans Affairs, and particularly on Veterans Day?
That's a really good question. So what everybody can do is, number one, you can thank a vet for their service. And not just the current generation, not just my generation of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. A lot of people never thank the Vietnam veterans for their service and their sacrifice. But there are many things that you can do in your communities. You can, number one, learn by heart the counseling hotline that we have, the mental health hotline, 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. And that way, if you know of a veteran who maybe needs to have some counseling, they can actually call that 800 number 24 hours a day and get help for mental stress. You can, if you are an employer, you can certainly help employ our veterans, offer them jobs. You can, if you know somebody who's deployed, you can certainly support their family members. It's getting to be winter. I'm from Chicago. I know there are a lot of folks in Chicago who will be worried about who's helping my wife at home, who's helping to shovel the driveway. And something as minor as that can make a really big difference.
Thank you. So the next question comes from John Stephen Dwyer. He asks, how will the VA handle the mental health needs of veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan? Former First Lady Rosalind Carter has been very vocal in her concern that mental health needs of these veterans are underserved.
Mental health needs of veterans is a really important issue. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier that we're doing at VA is we're screening 100% of our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans when they come through the doors of VA. Even if you come in for a sprained ankle, your first time through a VA facility, you will get screened for traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. That's really critical because many people don't even know that they're suffering from post-traumatic stress. We're also expanding services across the country. I talked about the mental health hotline. We also have a chat room. We developed the chat room because we realized that a lot of our vets are still in the service. They're still deployed. They need to be able to talk to a counselor even while they're downrange in Iraq or Afghanistan. So we have the chat room. It's suicidepreventionlifeline.org. And they can actually access that. We made both available to family members because a lot of times the vets themselves are in denial and they're not asking for help, but it's mom or dad or wife or husband or a child that actually sees the symptoms and needs help, so they can call in as well.
Okay. We've got, this is more of a comment. This is from Jim Starwitz. He says, hope you mentioned Vantage, blogs.va.gov/Vantage. The new VA interactive blog, so the brothers and sisters know that there is use, and check it out. There's a press release yesterday. Too bad we didn't have this technology in the last 4 decades. Great job. Can you speak a little bit to the new blog?
So I think that question was planted. I'm not sure.
I know. Do you know Jim Starwitz?
I don't know Jim, but I am so proud of it. So what I did when I came to VA 18 months ago, when I was appointed assistant secretary, was I decided that we needed to have an office of new media. And I went out and recruited and was able to convince Brandon Friedman, our director of the Office of New Media, to come on board. And he's really spearheaded our new media efforts, social media, networking, all of those resources. And then Brandon then went out and was able to recruit Alex Horton, who used to write the blog Army of Dude. If any of you read it, was I love the haikus. Great blog. And so we just launched, after a lot of hard work, the VA's very first blog. And please, all of you out there, come to the blog. We welcome submissions. It's not going to be a page where we just do VA propaganda. It's going to be real discussions. It's going to be part of our VA's continuing effort to really listen to our vets, and also taking criticism and trying to fix them. That's one of the hallmarks of President Obama and this administration, is that we are listening and we are admitting our mistakes when we make them, and we certainly are always trying to improve. So please be part of the community, and I really look forward to these discussions.
Thanks. If you're just joining us, go to whitehouse.gov/live. There's a link to the Facebook live chat where a number of questions are coming in right now for Tammy. This one has just come in from Carol Ann Jacobson. She writes, my husband is a 100% disabled veteran. Why aren't there more programs for wives of veterans?
So part of the issue, number one, if your husband's 100% disabled, service-connected disabled veterans, there are many benefits for the spouses. There are educational programs that are available to you. VA will pay for your education so that you can go out and start a new career if that's what you need. You can get health care through VA if you're the spouse of a 100% service-connected disabled veteran. So there are programs for spouses. At our vet centers, we have counseling for all of our vets and their family members as well, so you can come in for counseling. But you're right, there needs to be more. VA is, we are mandated by Congress, and there are public laws that says who we can serve and who we cannot serve. We expand our benefits all the time, but I do think that there is a need for more, and hopefully you'll work with us and work with your members too. If you want to see our services expanded, then that's one of those things that will have to be legislated.
Okay. The next question comes from Kevin Rolls. He asks, what's up with the backlogs in the claim system, especially the appeals department?
Sure. So we're working to fix that. And if you have listened to me in the past, even before I came to VA, you'll know I'm one of the biggest critics on this. VA has a really interesting situation. On the one hand, we have the nation, if not the world's best, electronic medical record system. On the other hand, in our benefits administration, we're completely paper-bound. When President Obama took office, when Secretary Shinseki took over, that system was paper-bound, literally sheets of paper with people's records on them. One of the things that we can do to fix the backlog is to go to an electronic system. And I'll give you an example. When I left Walter Reed Army Hospital with my DOD medical records, I had to go to VA to get signed in. I had to wait 3 months for a medical exam. I went into the medical exam. The VA could not accept the DOD electronic records, and I had to strip down and prove that I was still an amputee. It was humiliating, and it was wrong. And as part of the administration at VA, I'm making sure that that never happens to another veteran. So we're doing that through the VULER, electronic lifetime medical records, electronic lifetime records. We're doing that through partnerships with DOD so that you only get one evaluation for your medical status when you leave DOD and come to VA. And we're working, as hard as we can to get rid of that backlog. It's still there. It's smaller than it used to be, but it's going to take a while to work through it. And we have hired thousands, literally thousands of additional staff to work through that backlog.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes from Tim Mitchell. He asks, how many disabled vets are getting care, and why don't we hear more about their success stories?
Well, here's the really interesting thing. There are a little over 23 million veterans in the United States, but only 8 million have come to VA and to get their benefits. So one of the things that you can help is to spread the word. A lot of veterans don't even think they're veterans. I get a lot of female veterans or veterans from peacetime eras who think that you have to be a combat vet to be considered a veteran. That's not true. So there are a lot of myths out there about what benefits you can get and what is and isn't available. The best thing to do is to go to a VA medical center, go to a VA regional office, or to a veteran service organization and fill in the forms and put in for your benefits. A lot of veterans get care. I think that more veterans get care than people realize, and most veterans are very happy with the care that they receive. I'll tell you that we've been rated as the best medical care system in the country time and again. Our hospitals are always in the top 100 top hospitals in the country by rated by organizations like U.S. News and World Report, third-party, unbiased third parties. So those that are in the system and know about it and are taking advantage of it are very happy. Unfortunately, there are going to be problems. Any big system, there'll be problems, and sometimes those are the most sensationalist, and those are what you hear about when there are literally millions of veterans getting great care and who are very happy with the care that they receive.
Okay, Robin Shotek has sort of a follow-up to a question you answered earlier. Thanks for the information about the backlog, but what recommendations do you have to help veterans speed up the process in writing their disability claims? Is there anything that they can do?
There's a lot that you can do, and some of the things that you can do start with what you do even before you leave the service. Anytime you have an injury or an illness or something like that, make sure it's recorded. If you blew out a knee on an air assault mission, if you forgot to wear your hearing protection on the range and you have a ringing in your ears, anything like that, go to your commanding officer, go to your platoon sergeant, your squad leader, and get either a line of duty form filled out or even just a memorandum for record. Make sure these things are in your military record so that when you come to VA, you have evidence that you suffered these things. I'll give you an example of the Vietnam veterans. We are right now still dealing with Vietnam veterans who are trying to prove that they were in a certain location when something happened 40 years later, and they're trying to find an old platoon sergeant from 45 years ago. So you can start by maintaining your own records and making sure that you don't try to be too macho. If you have a torn ligament, make sure it's noted in your records, and don't try to just, as we say in the Army, don't just try to man up and fight through it. Make sure it's in your records. The other thing that you can do that we highly recommend vets do is go to a veteran service officer. And there are many veteran service officers who are free of charge. So every state has a Department of Veterans Affairs. These are state employees. They will help you fill out the forms. They know how to fill out the forms properly. They know what you may or may not qualify for. And many of them are qualified by VA to expedite your packets. You can go to veteran service organizations like the American Legion, Purple Heart, AMVETS, any one of those, and they also have service officers. Don't try to submit your claims on your own. You can try, but it's going to take longer. Get someone who's done hundreds of them, and that will help your case get through faster.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, go to whitehouse.gov/live. There is a link to join the live chat on Facebook where you can submit your question for Tammy. I'm scanning. We've got a lot of good questions coming in. The next one comes from David Adams. He asks, what guarantee do you have to help disabled veterans get the jobs we deserve so we won't be turned away and have to drive thousands of miles to go to these jobs? This is coming from a 25-year-old veteran with back problems.
So there's no guarantee that anybody can give a disabled veteran to say that I can make a private company hire you. I will tell you that if you apply for employment with either federal or state government, that both have veterans preference, so that you will be guaranteed to get a higher ranking. You'll get an extra, I think in some cases it's 10 points. You get 5 points veterans preference and 10 points for being a service-connected disabled veteran, and that'll put you ahead of other people in competition for a particular job. You can certainly come to VA. We have an assistance program that will help you apply for and get federal jobs, that will help you with your resumes, will help you fill in the application and all of that types of thing. And that's you can find that through our VA webpage, va.gov. Just search on Veterans Federal Employment, and you'll get to that office. So, there's a couple of things you can do. Apply for those federal and state jobs. Make sure that your training is up to date. If you need any training, vocational rehabilitation, you want to go back to school, come to VA. We will help you find a way to be able to afford the training that you need so that your skills are current and marketable.
Thanks. The next question comes from Ear Carsto Montera. I would like to ask why we're not more helpful to the veterans or retired veterans. They get shuffled a lot, and I was under the impression that they were not eligible for the VA hospitals, but they were eligible at the base hospitals.
Okay, so that's a mistaken impression. All service-connected veterans are eligible to come to VA for care. And that is if you have a disability that comes from your military service. You are also, we have what's called a Priority 8 veteran. And those veterans, Secretary Shinseki just opened enrollment back to them. It was closed during the Bush administration, but Secretary Shinseki reopened enrollment for those veterans. And those are veterans who served, but who don't have a service-connected disability, but and also make too much money to traditionally have been able to be qualified for VA care. We've reopened Priority 8, so even those veterans can come to us for care. So it's not so much that we don't care for veterans. A lot of veterans don't come. The DoD component is maybe where you're getting a little confused, and that is in order to continue to receive care from a DoD facility, you have to be a military retiree. And not all veterans are military retirees. If you only did 4 years of service and you left, that's not a retirement.
Okay. The next question, this comes from Robert Shostak. He said, over the summer, there was news about implementing new regulations concerning PTSD claims. What were these new regulations, and how will this impact future PTSD claims?
Sure. So what's the regulation you're talking about is, I think it's still in the public comment period. It's something the DoD proposed. And it basically is a presumptive ruling. And that means that if you were in theater, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Kuwait, if you were in theater in the Middle East and you come home and you are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, we will presume that your post-traumatic stress is caused by your deployment. You don't actually have to prove, as you used to have to do, that you were in an actual firefight, that you saw something traumatic, which is the way it had been previously. So this new ruling is something that is in the comment period right now, I believe. I'll have to check and see if it's out, but last I checked, it was still in the public comment period, where we will presume that if you are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress and you were just in theater, you didn't even have left the perimeter of your base, but if you're found to have post-traumatic stress, we will presume that it is from your military service and your deployment. So that is a lowering of the requirement for proof.
Okay, the next question comes from Brian Hawthorne. Tammy, thanks for all that you do for our nation's heroes.
Okay, that one's planted. Hi, Brian.
So Brian asks, can you talk a little bit about outreach to student veterans? What's the VA doing to support our vets using the GI Bill who are struggling in school?
Sure, absolutely. And Brian is with the Student Veterans of America, which is a great organization, really supporting and helping our student veterans become successful as they go back to school. VA is doing quite a few things through the GI Bill, which is the largest expansion of VA benefits in over 30 years. We are looking within the GI Bill itself, the post 9/11 GI Bill, when it was implemented, there were some loopholes. There were some things that we overlooked when it was when legislators put the law through that overlooked a few things. For example, the Montgomery GI Bill used to pay for technical training, but post 9/11 doesn't pay for all technical training. If you're at an online university like me, I take all my courses. I went back to school, decided to get a degree. I'm using my post 9/11 GI Bill. I am getting my education through an online university. Well, the post 9/11 GI Bill doesn't pay per diem, doesn't pay for your housing if you go to an online school. You still got to live, you still got to pay your rent, but you're not getting that money like if you were to go to a traditional bricks and mortar school. So one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to fix these issues and having partners like the Student Veterans of America who are helping us work with legislators to fix the law so that all veterans can actually get the benefits, be able to afford to go to school, and be able to be successful is really important.
Okay, thank you. This is our last question. It comes from Lynn Tomorrow, and she asks, what is being done to help women vets who have MST? And didn't report it and have no way to prove it in order to be able to claim PTSD MST. It's almost always denied and it's not fair. We need more help for women vets.
Sure. So what she's talking about is military sexual trauma. And they say that 9 out of 10 women in the military who experience military sexual trauma never reported it. have not verified those figures, but that is a common figure that's out there. So what we're doing is two things. One, you can get care. You can go to any vet center and you can get in and you can get counseling, which is really what you need first and foremost. And then let's deal with the problem of verifying. One of the things that VA will acknowledge and accept is if you can get letters from your previous commanders and your previous platoon sergeants and your chain of command to say, yes, this person actually experienced this, then that is something that we will accept as proof. It's case by case, it has to be reviewed. But the most critical thing is that you need to get treatment for it, and that treatment is available at VA. We have the counseling programs that are in existence now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tammy, for joining us. For those of you that joined us late, the complete video will be posted on whitehouse.gov shortly, so be sure to visit whitehouse.gov. For more information on Veterans Day and the new blog that we were talking about earlier, go to va.gov and check it out. Thanks very much.